Spanish Grand Bayside. Peter Moss, Sandhill Shores.
Good morning, Peggy Sailor, Spanish Grant Beach.
Hi, I'm Craig Vance with Caramar Beach.
Julie Greenwell with Sea Isle.
Sarah Hawks, Sportsman Road.
And our elected officials that we have here, of course, our speaker, Terri Leo Wilson, right here. And Jamaica Beach City Council member, Taz Jones. And everybody else that I missed. I'd like to introduce our corporate sponsors, Will Be Financial, and also Luke, Missouri. Luke?
Yeah,
All right, you wanted to talk about,
60 seconds.
yeah, that's fine.
Yes, sir.
You need a microphone?
Can you hear me okay? Yeah, my name is Luke Baser, the owner of House Doctors of Galveston. We do handyman services, home remodeling, home repairs of all types. If you named the job, we could probably do it. We've even gotten into landscape projects, put up fences. We're kind of getting talked into building a couple beach walkovers possibly, so it goes up beyond the house. We get a little bit into commercial work as well, but we cater to the West End. My wife and I, Brenda, we own property here on the West End, and we saw a need on the West End of the island. You know, for that kind of resources, somebody that's going to show up, be on time, be reliable, and get the work done, quality, right? So yeah, it's hard to find out here sometimes. So we saw the need, so we jumped on it, established House Doctors of Galveston, and we truly do cater to the West End of the island. So I left some little notepads, pens, pamphlets on the table over there, so maybe on your way out. I got a magnet too you can stick on your fridge so you don't forget to give us a call. But just wanted to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about our services. And if you have any questions for me, I'll be here all meeting.
There's a question, Luke.
Yes, sir.
I had you guys out week before last to do a little small project for me. You guys were on time. The young man you sent was terrific. You guys did a good job on
I
that.
appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, sir.
You know, I'm representing Constable Jim Fullen today, who couldn't come, but you all know him, been here for all the meetings and everything. If you want to carry off some of his signs, I'll put 20 or 30 in your car, or you can have one here. Thank you. He's running for sheriff, Galveston County.
When is that election, Art? When is that election?
Yeah, it's in March, I think, yeah.
Okay. Any other candidates for office we have? All right, let's move on. Board, if we can approve the September 16th minutes and the September 30th financials.
So moved.
Peggy?
Second.
Second? Chris? Any other discussion? All in favor? Okay, let's have a West End Police report. Lieutenant Sean Migues. Sean? Thanks for coming over, Robb.
Morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good. Well, West End's been pretty well. Our biggest topics, police-wise, have been serial red light runners in Pirates Beach, and dump trucks were acted up again earlier this week. But they've since had quite the talking to, so they're slowing down again. And then, other than that, I think the pole line work, is inconvenient as it is to swing by my house and grab a cup of coffee, is actually helping because it's forcing everybody to 3005, and random people aren't coming to the neighborhoods as often. Just want to remind everybody that Motorcycle Rally starts next weekend, or is going to be here next weekend. So probably tomorrow night around 7:30, 8 o'clock, start expecting that first surge of everybody coming in. I'm going to apologize in advance. It's going to be loud, and there's nothing we can do about it. I was laying in bed last night, and I'm a good 3/4 of a mile off 3005. I hear zoom, and I'm like, great, here we go. So it just buckle down. It's just going to be loud for a week. For those of you that don't know, the seawall event area has been expanded further west, so it's going to be much larger, and I think they're trying to push some of the crowd up to the seawall to kind of balance out downtown on the seawall. So if you've got a hankering for a turkey leg, good luck. Go down and get one. And if not, just hunker down. This is a good weekend for movies and whatnot at the house. Have a little barbecue. For those of you that have renters, if they're living next to you or near you, if you start noticing that there's 300 bikers at a house, please call us. We'll definitely come by and have a chat with them about noise and shenanigans. But that's about, as far as the West End, that's kind of where we're at. The rest of the island, apparently in the last 3 weeks, everybody has completely forgotten how to drive. Unfortunately, we've had multiple fatalities. People are getting run over left and right. Ladies and gentlemen, the laws of physics are absolute. Okay, like you can run a red light, but if you hit something, it's going to hurt you. People are smaller than cars. Stop stepping in front of them and expecting them to stop 5 feet from you. If you have a bicycle, I don't know what's going on in Washington. That's a whole mess right now, but I know daylight savings time is up and down, whether or not we're going to do it. We're rolling clocks back one more time. But it is darker, so if you ride a bike for exercise, please have a light on it, or reflective clothing so everybody can see you. And remember that if you are on a bicycle, you still have to stop the stop signs and you have to act like it's a car. That's kind of most of what's being hit right now are pedestrians that decide to randomly cross or step out into traffic, and then bicycles that forget that there's anything else around them and they go zooming through stop signs and crossing roads at random points. And unfortunately, I'm guilty of it too. My Tundra's nice, the AC works, the radio's really quality, and I don't really hear much outside of my truck. So that's kind of everybody's car now. They're well insulated, and there's so many distractions in there now. You've got a whole satellite screen thing that tells you you're due for maintenance or whatever. So just be careful. Are y'all seeing anything? Have y'all seen a spike in anything that hasn't been reported or not going on?
I got a question. It's kind of like there at the seawall. I guess this is more applicable, but I assume any kind of electric vehicle you can run on the sidewalks anywhere you want.
No, that's not correct.
Ah.
But if you're speaking of those little pocket bikes and all those little crazy scooters,
it's almost like they ought to be licensed and on the road or something.
I would prefer it, but I think that's something that's going to have to be addressed locally through council of ordinances, especially the electric scooters. Those things get up 15, 20, 30 miles an hour. And being an island that's supported by the hospitality industry, hospitality doesn't always have the highest paying jobs, but you've still got to be at work on time, and you've got to have reliable transportation to get home. So if I could save up a couple paychecks and spend $800 on an electric scooter that can go a little faster than a golf cart, get me to and from work, I can charge it at night when I'm home, and I can bring it inside work so it doesn't become part of the community pool of vehicles, I'm going to do it. And as long as that resource is available, people are going to take advantage of it. The flip side to that is, as much as I hate for them to be on the sidewalk, especially on the seawall, it's almost safer not safer for the pedestrians and walking your dog, but it's safer for them, because if they're in traffic, they're going to become part of the road arrangement.
These fatality accidents, are they locals, visitors on both sides of the victim and
It's usually a mix of both. It really kind of all depends on where it happens. A lot of our local ones, some of them are like in the heavier areas or tourists. Sometimes it's tourists that are getting hit by locals. Other times it's tourists hitting locals in parts of areas that are frequented just by locals. That part is kind of like playing roulette. You just never know who's going to be doing who. So yesterday we had somebody drive off the seawall. So that was. Oh yeah, it was. I guess it was a good day to have drugs and a disagreement and choose to drive. They're okay. They're also very much under arrest. I've got guys sitting in the hospital right now. So turns out they were also wanted. So it was like a little bacon wrapped police package for us yesterday. It worked out. Sometimes we got to go find them, and sometimes the criminals, they just come right to us. It's great. But Jerry, what's your question? Oh, sorry.
Sean, so I think the last hit and run I saw in the paper, I think it was on the seawall. I'm not sure. But it seems to me, I hear a lot about either close calls or accidents on the seawall impacting pedestrians. Are they not using the crosswalks? Is there something particular going on?
I can tell you from what I've seen driving down the seawall, just personally, and living here, getting my kids to and from school. No, people are not using the crosswalks. Everybody wants to cross at the most convenient point, and our speed limits have changed up and down over the years on seawall. Most recently down, because up until about 2 or 3 years ago, you'll remember, it was 50 west of 61st Street, and then it was 45 all the way to about 39th. And then it slowly started coming down. For the longest time, it wasn't until 37th or 35th where you could legally operate a golf cart up there. But we've gone through and we've changed all these, we've lowered speed limits to accommodate the surgence of golf carts. And that hasn't done anything to change people's tolerance levels, patience levels, or the ability to wake up 20 minutes earlier to get to work. So if you're clipping down the seawall and all of a sudden there's this long line, there's a combination of, hey, I've really got to get to where I'm going. And we're still seeing an influx of tourists even during school times. And it's just, people come here and forget that there's things like crosswalks and stop signs. And it's, the other thing I've seen a lot lately is everybody's on the seawall taking pictures of the sunrise, which I applaud. You want to get nature photos? Go for it. I like taking them too. However, you can't open your door into traffic, stand in a lane to get your perfect, and it's just like that whole rash of people dying taking selfies with selfie sticks we had a couple years ago, where people were falling off of cliffs and everything else. Well, now we're at that point, but everybody's trying to get that perfect sun. I'm holding the sun in the background as it comes up, standing in the road or standing on their car, and it's unfortunately half of those people are local because nobody wants to wake up that early and drive down from Houston to catch a sunrise. So there's just, people are not making very good decisions in general, and the decisions they are making tend to be terminal, and that's just not good.
Another question.
Yes, sir.
How's the department staffing? Are y'all still behind?
We are still behind. We're gradually creeping up. We have 2 cadets that are waiting to go to the police academy now. We just had a test, I believe it was last week, and of the 60 or 70 people that signed up to take the test, only 16 showed up. Of those 16, 7 passed the written exam, and I'm not sure what it came down to on the physical agility test after that. Keep in mind, we've gone with a different test to enable more people to come in. We had a test that was written by college professors, and we were like, not everybody's on that level. Let's let's go for common denominator. Yes, ma'am.
Did you all ever catch the people, the shooters from Migues?
That investigation is still underway. I wish I could go more into it, but if you can imagine untangling a bowl of spaghetti, that's about how that's going. The one really good thing about that is all those people were from the same area, and that area was not here. So all that drama and shenanigans went with them, and if it doesn't play out in the streets there, we'll eventually have them here in the criminal justice system. But that was residents are safe from that one. That was isolated to that particular group of people from that community. Anybody else? All right. On a personal note, y'all need to put a whole bunch of nitro-phos in your grass, because I don't know what came with that last rain, but I've got a jungle of sticker burrs now all of a sudden. So just heads up. Yeah, go here.
Thank you, Sean. Good. I don't think it's going to be working. Well, anyways, I'll just shout. We'll move on, and we'll hear from our District 123 State Representative, Terri Leo Wilson. Terri, welcome. I wish I had a microphone for you.
If not, I'll just talk loud.
It's not,
Okay.
the red light come, there it is. There we go.
Just for you.
Okay. Oh, well, no? Can't hear me? Did it go on? Okay. No? Can you hear me? Okay. No? Anyway, thank you all so much for having me. Dave and I retired to the West End. We love the West End. We love Galveston. We never thought in a million years we would be doing this in our retirement. So it has been an adventure, and truly we are people, and we have made so many great friends through this adventure that we really appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for your vote. I am up for re-election again. Every 2 years the state representatives have a 2-year term, so we're always running, it seems like. But I just wanted to kind of briefly tell you some things that we're doing right now in the special sessions, but what we accomplished in the regular 88th session. But I do want to leave time for questions, so I've asked Dave to time me to 20 minutes. You don't give politicians microphones on a Saturday, especially with the German festival going on, without a timer. So Dave will be my timer. So right now we are back in our 3rd special session. We just passed some measures on COVID that we did during the regular session for state agencies. So we banned COVID vaccines. We made that a personal choice.
Mandatory vaccine.
Yeah, mandatory. I'm sorry. Did I say that wrong? Yeah. We banned mandatory vaccines, so now it's a personal choice between you and your doctor for all state agencies, as well as no government shutdowns and no mask mandates. So those will be individual decisions that will be made by you. And we felt like that was the best way to go. We saw the economy kind of plummet during that whole time, and we know more science than we did at the time when we did all of those mandates. So I think that the science has shown that there are some concerns that people might have with their health and whatnot. So, and I'll take time for questions. And
There you go.
Sorry. Oh, you got it? Okay. Thank you. Oh, that's good. So anyway, so that's one thing. So during this special session, it's going back over to the Senate right now. The House just passed a measure that would also extend that to employees and private businesses. And one of the things that also included in the legislation that is, if you are a business owner and you had decided that you're not going to do vaccine mandates, that you could not be sued. So there was a measure of protection in there for the employer by somebody that said, well, you didn't vaccinate everyone and I got sick, and so now I'm suing you. So we put some measures in there to protect private businesses as well. So that was an issue. Don't know what the final version of the bill will be like when it comes back over to the House, and then it'll probably go to conference committee because there were some differences in funding and all of that kind of stuff. One of the other things that we have dealt with is the border in special session. So previously, there was a few $1 million that were over time given to, am I cutting out?
You're a little too loud.
Too loud? Okay. Here? Okay. Yeah, give me feedback. So anyway, we have increased spending for the border into the billions now. So we have increased spending to continue building the wall, and that's a huge process because you have to acquire land, a lot of it from private landowners. And so we've done that. There is more money as well for shoring up law enforcement and the type of things that they can do. I did get attached to one of the border bills. About 8 months ago, the Biden administration stopped ICE from doing rapid DNA tests at the border when they suspected trafficking. That's put back in, so hopefully our Texas law enforcement can do that. So we are trying to get several tools in the toolbox, as Sally would always say, to try to stem what is happening at our southern border. So Texas is seeing the brunt of it, as you know. So you know, again, we don't know for sure what the final version of the bill will be, but it does include, you know, funding for more law enforcement at the border, completing the wall, and those type of projects. So during the 88th, we also spent more money on school security. It's not completely funded by the state, but it is a massive influx of money. So we had $1.4 billion going for school security, and depending on the number of students in your building, it could be, you know, so more for your particular building. You know, constituents really wanted that local districts also use part of their budgets for school security. And at the same time, we also are not just shoring up mental health funding for public schools, but we also are shoring up mental health funding for communities in general, because, you know, across the state, this is a problem that we're all dealing with. Galveston County will get some of that influx, and we are able to now also hire one more law enforcement person that will be dedicated to different individuals that have different various mental health issues, and that's really what is the root of the problem of whatever crime they're involved in. So that will be good to have an officer that's an expert in that area, being able to respond to those kind of calls. Online security for minors, we passed a bill that will prevent or at least ask for an ID from online pornography vendors, and that there'll be certain security measures that they have to follow to ensure that minors are not getting on their site. So, and there is a penalty if they don't follow along with those regulations. We passed something that was called the Regulatory Consistency Act. And so overall, I mean, it's got a lot of moving pieces to it, but overall I think this will be a really great bill. It makes sure that cities and counties don't create ordinances that try to get around state law. So if there's a state law that is in that area or regarding that area, they won't be able to supersede that by creating an ordinance around it. So we'll see how that, it's a long bill, there's a lot of pieces. Should I just go without it? No?
Stand
Okay.
back, and I think so.
Stand back,
Because you get ahead of the speaker.
and then that messes me up,
I
okay.
think so.
Okay. So one other thing that we did was we did make sure that minors were not part of gender reassignment, modification surgeries. So you have to be 18 to now do that. You can't make that decision for a child. So we did pass that. The Reader Act was an act that rates school books in libraries. So you have a rating system in which you know, there are things that are not appropriate for an elementary student that might be appropriate for high school. So like Othello, you know, that's a classic works of literature. But the theme is more of an adult theme. So it would be more appropriate for a high schooler or even a middle schooler to have access to that. So it rates books, but it also has a rating system that will remove objectionable books that are not appropriate for any student. And there are those. I have a whole list of it. I served 3 terms on the State Board of Education, and that has always been an area of concern. Is, you know, we want kids to have really good classic works of literature. We want them to have strong libraries, but we don't want them to have access to basically pornographic material. So, and we've seen that issue come up in lots of different school libraries. It won't do anything to affect a public library. A public library can use that rating if they want to. They don't have to. That's up to that community. DAs. So you've noticed in some of the bigger cities that some district attorneys do not want to put people in jail. They don't want to follow the laws. So this measure would allow a neighboring DA to also take over that case for a DA when they're not willing to prosecute or follow through with a crime. We also increased penalties for fentanyl use, which is a huge problem at the border as well. And it's a problem that Galveston County keep going back, okay, sorry, I keep getting closer to you. But Galveston County is like second in Texas as far as fentanyl deaths. So for lots of different reasons, but more funding will be headed towards those agencies to help with that issue. Increasing the penalties is good. I had a bill that you probably might have read about in the Galveston Daily News. It didn't get through. I'll try it again next session. It was on fentanyl strips, on testing, so that school, police officers could immediately test. It helps trace back to where that drug came from, so that they can catch the person who is either distributing it or making it. And then it also increased the penalties. Those penalties would be there because they would be able to find the person. So anyway, those are some of the key pieces of legislation. We will continue to work on what's called ESAs, which are Education Savings Accounts, which is a school choice plan. That is kind of in limbo right now. The Senate very quickly passed out a bill. The House does not have the votes currently to pass that bill. It has not been referred because it doesn't quite match the governor's call. The governor said, I want to do education savings accounts. I want you to get that done. And then once you do that, we'll deal with teacher salary increases and a whole host of other things that will benefit public schools. And actually the dollar figure is astronomical. It's as much as the property tax relief. So it's $19 billion probably that will result in going into public school funding in all different areas. So basic allotment, teacher salary increases. The very small amount for the ESA is about $500 million. So it's very small in comparison. It's a very narrowly focused program. But we don't have the votes, I don't think, to pass that bill out without doing both. Because there is some concern over legislators that are from rural districts. But there are incentives for rural districts as well, and kind of a safe fall measure in that if you do lose a student to an ESA and you lose that average daily attendance monies that normally would come with that student, the state will pay $10,000 per student that you have lost for 5 years. It will also bring a huge amount of salary increase to rural teachers as an incentive to teach in a rural community. So I don't see the House passing a bill without both of those things in, that assurance to some of the rural legislators that are worried about any loss of money that might be for their community. So we may be going back to a fourth session, and that's kind of what looks, and there is a lot of legislation, as you know, that got vetoed along the way. Some of the bills that I had carried for Galveston County that were, I'm sorry, I keep going back and forth there. Some of the bills that I passed for Galveston County, one of them was on emergency funding and taking anticipation notes during a disaster, so that will benefit all of our coastal communities, that we will have access to funding when we need to clear highways and do all the things that you have to do after a hurricane to clean up. So those will be good things. There was a wastewater issue on Bolivar, so we passed a bill that also allows Bolivar to use a septic system on a certain, if they meet all of the TCEQ regulations, on a certain size of lot. So those were really good things. Right now Bolivar only has one way for wastewater on the peninsula, and it's had a lot of issues therein. Let me see. We put some more money into the coastal barrier system, so that is good. We are still waiting, and hopefully the governor will put it on a special call for Dennis Paul. Representative Dennis Paul had a really good bill that was kind of the depository for all of the funds for the Greater Gulf Coast Protection and Recovery District. So all of those funds would be able to come, because not all of them are state dollars, some of them are federal dollars, some of them will be individual, grants, whatever. We can all put it into that fund to shore up the coastal barrier system. So we're hoping that that gets back on there. One of the other Galveston County bills that was important to Galveston County is, for some reason in law, Galveston County was carved out on their juvenile justice meeting time. So all of our judges had to get together once a week to have a meeting, regardless if they felt like they needed one or not. And for the rest of the state, all of the rest of their juvenile justice departments met once a month. So we don't know why that was carved out for Galveston, but we changed that back so that our meeting times are consistent with the rest of the state. So that's another little bill that got passed for Galveston County. The grid, we know that we had to shore up some protections on the grid, and this will be also on as one of your ballot propositions. So there is two pieces to the grid that they are trying to fix. One is to make sure that it's more secure, and that, hello, okay, I'm back on. That it's more secure, and that we have funding and mechanisms in place for people that might want to do the grid wrong, especially like foreign entities. So there's some more qualifications on screening and security measures on that end, but also there's grant money available for new energy and generation. They're low cost or no cost loans, and there's incentives if you get that power generator up online very quickly. So we just felt like we needed more energy and more generation going into the power grid. So right now we have like 30 billion in our rainy day fund, and we still have 11 billion that rolls over. One of the biggest measures was the property tax relief plan, and that will be Proposition 4 on your ballot. If anybody wants to know any more about the propositions, I'll stay after, and I can tell you the pros and cons of each one, and kind of go through that with you if you have some questions on it. Or we can also email you, some of the, I worked up a situation that's nonpartisan. It's just here's the pros and here's the cons of each proposition if you're interested in having that. But the property tax bill will be huge if it passes. We will have a $100,000 homestead exemption, 110 if it's, depending on if you're disabled or over 65, so that might increase. Some of you have already gotten your statement and seen something lower on there, which is good. Could we do more? I wish we would have, because we do have a very large surplus. We did also buy down the M&O rate of that portion of your property taxes, so the state is now paying more of that for you, and so you as a property owner are not paying that. And it also brings the state into paying about 50% of what funds our public schools. So a lot of people have wanted to see that as well, that the state chip in more and step in more than individual property owners. So that was good. There is a 20% cap on non-homestead properties, so that will help small businesses. And then also we did away with, under a certain level, the franchise tax for small businesses. So that would be a great thing. Then we also made sure that in Texas, biological women are the only ones playing in women's sports. So we saw a lot of injuries over the time, a lot of unfairness in competition. When I was a little girl, we passed Title IX, and so that was really important to women to try to equalize the playing field in sports. So I think that was a really important piece of legislation. Okay. We did put some regulations on electric vehicles, and the reason we kind of went down that road was one of the ways that we pay for our highway system is through a gasoline tax. And if you have an electric vehicle, you're not contributing to the roads. In actuality, many of those vehicles are heavier, and they do just as much, wear and tear on our roads. So we had to come up with some way of funding and making electrical vehicles help pay for our highway system. So there will be some more regulations. There'll be a fee for purchasing and then a yearly fee. But we do need to go back and look at that situation. We were trying to do a pilot program, and that bill did not get through, of where we would do a pilot program where you could choose whether you wanted a mileage tax or a gasoline tax, so that the state can kind of have a study and figure out how much do we need to continue the level of funding for TxDOT. They were like $300 million in the whole, I think, the last biennium. So we have to figure out a way to fund those roads, because we are really going more down a road where we're going to see more electric vehicles and not less. So we need to figure out how we're going to fund all that. The what? Oh, time? Okay. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
What is it that these small town guys have against the education bill? Is it that when they lose a student, they lose their funds?
That's what they're worried about. It's a different, it's two different ways of thinking. There's one school of thought that parents should be empowered, and parents should choose and have the right to choose what they think is best for their kids. There's the other school of thought that just thinks, well, that is public school money, and anything that you spend on anything else other than an ISD is not, oh, I'm off again. It's not going to, it's taking away from what my school could get. You know, rural schools do have less student population, so therefore they have less average daily attendance money going to them. There's not that many options for an ESA in a rural area. They could use that ESA to buy books if they were going to homeschool. But I feel like this has been done in 29 other states, and it has not devastated the public school system. If anything, I think there's evidence that it's that competition has improved and made them do some more things in the public schools that are, you know, that would be attractive to keep students there. So, I'm not a rural educator. I'm not a rural, I have not been in a rural school district. So I'm trying to be sensitive to those things, but I don't see that many students leaving a rural school and using an ESA. I don't think there'll be an influx of that, but they are worried about that. Anyone else?
Terri.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Sorry, you guys have had my
No,
bad.
That's okay. We make ourselves heard. Thank you very much for taking your time to be with us today. You know, first of all, I want to congratulate you, because for your first term, when I talked to other elected officials, one of the conversational items is, she is really Texas tough. And so personally, for you to get up there and have such a strong presence and be a person who stands by your convictions, I think you should be recognized for that.
Well,
so
thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. There is a little bit different perspective when you go to it. Like, you know, I said we were doing this in our retirement. I say we because Dave goes everywhere with me. We only have one car, so. No, but I could not do this without him. And we did decide that we were going to kind of do it together. If we were going to be in it together. But it's not my career. So I already had a career. So I'm willing to fight and take more chances, I think, because I'm just not going to be there forever. You know, I'm old. And so, I mean, you know, I know I have a window of time, and I want to be effective and do the things that I really wanted to do, especially on education in that window of time. One of the really important bills that I think we passed that was probably, to me as a teacher, and as somebody that's been heavily involved in public schools for my whole adult life, we passed a bill called 1605 that doesn't get a whole lot of recognition, but I think it's huge. In 2011, Senate Bill 6 passed, and to me it was one of the most devastating pieces of legislation ever on public schools, because what it did is it removed the elected body, the elected state board of education members, from looking at textbook content. And the reason that's important is because, should I set it down? Okay. Yeah. So the reason why that was so important is because you want an elected body looking over vendor materials that are going to be your teacher's #1 teaching tool to ensure that the curriculum is in the books. And they started taking data on our students. And in public schools since 2011, we have made no progress overall as a state at any grade level in all subject areas. This is devastating because it was the elected body that ensured that when a publisher said, my book contains 100% of the curriculum in which kids need to know from 3rd grade to 4th grade, a body was checking to make sure that was accurate. A body was making sure that that was true. And for 13 years now, we've had no area of governance over that. Publishers have self-certified that their materials are great, okay? So, I mean, I'm like, this is the fox guarding the hen house. So I fought against that bill in 2011. I fought to get that very important piece back to an elected body. Does that elected body disagree? Of course. There's Republicans and Democrats. But it was in the fray. It was in the art of compromise. It was in all of that made for better instructional materials. The end product was good, and the end product contained the curriculum. So we've held students to pass a STAR test when they haven't had the instructions on the curriculum elements, what you need to know to get to the next grade level. They haven't had that in their instructional materials, and now we're expecting them to be passing a test that tests for that. So that's another reason why it's not fair to public schools, it's not fair to students, it's not fair to teachers. You have to teach the curriculum. And Texas actually has a very good curriculum that is written by another thing, art of compromise, looking at other states, seeing what other things use. But if you don't have the instructional materials that teach the curriculum, that teach those very important elements for each grade level, then you're gonna have kids that can't pass the STAR. You're gonna have kids that come out and can't read and write. So to me, that was one of the most important things. It's not talked about very much, but I think it transformed a generation of students. And I think we have a chance to get that back. And to me, I'm just so pleased that I was actually able to be part of that and see that actually come to fruition after fighting that for 11 years and just walking around screaming and telling people, this is not good, this is not good. So I think we have a big chance to transform some things in public schools that are happening just on that element alone.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
I'm always a two-parter, so
Yeah.
I have a question. There have been many videos I have seen taken on the floor of what appear to be confrontations between members, almost a myriad of subjects. Additionally, with Attorney General Ken Paxton being escorted off the floor, my question is, with you being there, Terri, is it really as divisive among the membership as we're seeing portrayed in the paper, or what is your perspective?
I think that it's always, if you notice, it's pretty much the same members. And it's kind of like a piston contest. I will not lie, it is extremely ruthless. It just is. You get a bunch of elected state reps in a room, they're all chiefs, and some of them are not going to get along, and some of them are going to go back and forth and back and forth. So we agree far more than we disagree. But I do wish that the civility would be restored there, and that we wouldn't, that we would fight for legislation instead of fighting each other. So that was very disappointing. On the Paxton thing, I voted no. And my no, and I recorded it in the journal, was not because I don't think there's anything there, okay? My no was because of due process. And there was only a handful of us that voted that way, so thus it went over to the Senate side for the Senate to decide whether or not there was enough for the articles of impeachment. I just felt like it was handed to the House members. I had less than around 34 hours to look at 20 articles of impeachment that I didn't know was even taking place in hearing rooms since March. The majority of state representatives did not know that this was already occurring with a panel behind scenes. So there was just a lot of pieces there that I was like, okay, I felt it was a rush to judgment. I felt like I wanted to talk to firsthand witnesses. I wanted to read through old 20 articles, not on the week before bills, or the final bill where bills can be heard. There was just a lot of things wrong with the process, and that was my no. But that issue, the impeachment issue, has been a very divisive point, and I think a lot of things have fallen around that, but I think that is probably the root cause of much of it. And we'll see how the primaries turn out, but and see how it bodes well for the members that are kind of duking it out with each other, because I don't think constituents want that. I think they see you're there very little, and you need to get to work while you are there and get it done. And I think that, you know, that's where we have to keep our focus, is on the people back home, and respect the right that I feel like I vote the way my constituents, not everybody, but for the most part, want me to. And if you don't want me to, then you pick somebody else the next election cycle. And I respect that for members that have voted yes. They had their reasons for voting yes, and I respect that, and I'm not gonna, you know, argue with that. It's what they have chosen to vote for their own individual reasons or for their own district. And I think there has to be more recognition that really each of us who represent very different areas of the state with very different needs, and just, you know, continue to respect Republican, Democrat, impeachment, yes or no, all of those issues are issues that you just need to move on from. You voted the way you voted, let's get her done. Let's see what we can find agreement on, work together towards that, and leave that behind, because that's over, so.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
I applaud the fact that you're not a career politician. What percentage of folks that are in the House are career politicians versus people who are like, I'm standing up for something, I know something about it, I want to go give a few years to this?
Well, and that's on both sides. I mean, you know, I'm a Republican and feel very much that way, but there are Democrats that are very much that way too. I want to make things better. We may disagree on what making things better is, but I do believe that there are members on both sides like that. I don't really know a percentage, but a lot of people are looking towards their next election, and that means a lot to them. And so sometimes they don't take chances that or follow through with bills all the way that they could.
So my question is really this: what's your opinion of term limits? Should we have term limits so we can basically get fresh blood? People aren't constantly running; they aren't constantly getting money.
Right. Well, term limits, I mean, I kind of have term limits because it's every 2 years. So I serve a year, then I'm off, you know, from Austin a year, but I'm really running that whole year. So we kind of in the House side with a 2-year term, a little bit have some term limits. Now, if you wanted to say, okay, you can't run, you know, more than 5 cycles, something like that. I think my observation as a freshman is it's not so much, some people that have been there a long time have valuable historical knowledge and are very good legislators. And Dave and I disagree on this issue. This is probably our only political disagreement. I want the liberty as an individual to choose who I want to choose, whether they've been there 10 years, 20 years, or 1 year. I don't want that liberty taken away from me because people fail to go to the polls and get rid of bad people. So for me, I don't like that. But I see a need for term limits for agency heads, actually. Because some of the agency heads are very powerful and strong in Austin, more powerful than legislators, can stop legislation And so I would like to actually see us term limit agency heads of, different organizations, Texas Parks and Wildlife, I mean, all the different state agencies that we have. Some of those people have been there 20, 30 years, and, I think some of that is a problem. Dave would take the other side. He thinks everybody needs to be term limited
And so
because of the
every-
amount of money that's involved in trying to get rid of an incumbent.
And the level of influence that gathers over time. So why don't you
Correct.
change it to maybe 4 years instead of constantly running? Where House of Reps get 4 years and then you put in term limits.
Well,
with
I
it.
won't carry that bill. I would love to have that bill personally. But that would be a bill that where
No,
I think.
I understand, that's why I asked the first question,
Yes.
is what percentage is what? You're not gonna be able to do anything, so like
Yeah.
I said, I applaud the fact that you're doing it. I'm probably a lot more with Dave, I think we
Yeah.
basically make career politicians, they get so much influence that they sit there and frankly, I don't think it's right. I mean, it's kind of like one of the propositions where how old should judges be?
Right.
And we're gonna go make them older.
Yeah.
I'm old. At some point in time, I had a great career and I did a lot of good things. I'm slower today than I was before.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
anyway, I'll stop it.
Yeah, and I can tell you the pros and cons on that one as well, which I would side probably more with your thinking, being an older person. But I don't know the exact percentage, but in the end, I still feel that's up to districts to pick who they want to represent them. And I don't like limiting that, that's just me. But I totally get how hard it is to beat somebody that's entrenched with a lot of money and very few people actually go to the polls to remove them. It is a problem, it is a problem. In Texas, they only allow us to meet every other year. So, yes, I mean, we're operating on some laws that were, they're in 1935 and we're a different era. One of the bills that I tried to get passed that I don't think will ever go anywhere, unfortunately, is a bill that allows the Speaker of the House to choose, we know we have elections in November, we know in December who those new incoming members will be. It would allow us to, him to pick those committee assignments and then swear in January and get to work in January. Because the House side, if you notice, the House can't hear a bill till March 15th. That is insanity. When you're only there every 2 years, you got 9,000 bills coming through, and you have a very short window of time, a month really, to hear bills. The Senate can start right away, but the House side has, by constitution, can't hear bills till around that March 15th marker, depending on when inauguration is. So that limits the House severely, and it always looks like in January and February doing absolutely nothing. People are like, the Senate's already passed bills out, what's the House side doing? But it's because of the Constitution. So we have to pass a law. That law has to pass by 2/3 vote, and then it has to go on the ballot for the citizens of Texas to change the Constitution. I think the citizens would vote for that in a heartbeat. But for whatever reason, it goes nowhere. But that is truly part of why the House side continues to run out of time on bills, and it's just a very short window, and a lot of good bills die because of lack of time on the House side.
Different question, how much time would you have needed to review all of the charges brought against Paxton to vote yes?
How much time?
Yeah, because you said you weren't aware, and obviously
Yeah.
I've read so much stuff in so many papers for so many
Yeah.
months about
years.
it.
Yes.
That not to know anything, it's like, how much time would you need?
I knew what the charges were, and I mean, my no, and I'll just tell you personally, I did not support Ken Paxton in the primary because of many of the things that were already out there. I just didn't. I supported another candidate. I did support him in the general when he came out of the primary and run the primary. I felt like the people spoke, and he won overwhelmingly. He won without a runoff. With most of those, I think, all but one of the articles of impeachment were already known. Some of them were even posted on the AG website. So I did know about them, but I didn't have, knowing about them, knowing about the charge is different than having access to investigate the charge. Is that charge true or not? And of course, all along, he has said they're not. So he has, he said.
I can ask the officer what other people would say too, but anyway.
But he said they, so we didn't have the time, and the House impeachment rules of the past, of course, it's been a really long time since the House impeached somebody, but the impeachment rules were made by the members at that time. Members heard from firsthand and direct witnesses and from the accused. There was a lot of things that were different in the way the rules of this impeachment were established, and I think a lot of members saw that, okay, we are, whether we supported Ken Paxton or not, we are removing a duly elected office holder in which most of the charges and allegations were known if people had bothered to read or find out like you did. And so, what we were doing was we were in essence removing somebody duly elected from office. And so that measure.
That was his defense, right?
Part of it, yes. And so that was part of the measure of what we looked at as House members, is the consequences of what we do, and I mean, it did end up going over. There was enough yeses, clearly overwhelming enough yeses, but there wasn't the 21 votes needed in the Senate. So, yes. So, I mean, it was up to the Senate to do the investigation. A lot of people said that, well, we're just sending it over. We're just referring it over. We're not the judge, we're not the jury, we don't need to hear all of that. But for me, I did. I wanted to hear some of it at least, before I made such a grave, a decision that had grave consequences for the individual. And I felt like the process was done in a way that it could have been done against any of us. And like I said, I was not a Paxton supporter. So, and I still voted no because of the process. So I could see both. I personally a no because I've read some of that stuff and it is concerning. So, but now it will go to trial. The whistleblowers are going to proceed with going to trial, and the FBI is currently investigating some of those charges. So it will go through the court system now on whether or not he was guilty.
Thank you so much, Terri. Very good. Thank you so much again, Terri Leo. Doing great work for your constituents. Let's go on to Sally Bakko, Gulf Coast Protection District. Sally?
I can speak without the microphone because I'm loud. So if that's okay?
No problem.
Thank you. I'm Sally Bakko. I'm the Director of Policy and Governmental Relations for the City of Galveston, but I'm also here today in my role as Board Director with the Gulf Coast Protection District. And before I get into the Coastal Texas program and the district efforts thus far, I want to take just a quick moment to thank Representative Leo Wilson. She referenced a bill that she carried for the City of Galveston, which was that emergency financing bill. And this isn't a flashy bill. This isn't something that's going to be on the front page of the newspaper, but let me explain what this bill means to you. Prior to the 88th session, when local governments issue debt, they have to go through a review process with the Attorney General's office. Part of that review process is the local government obtaining a credit rating, a bond rating, which under normal circumstances makes absolute sense and is the responsible thing to do. However, if you've been hit by a hurricane, that becomes really detrimental. And let me explain. Prior to every hurricane season, the City of Galveston sets up a line of credit so that when we're hit by a hurricane, we can immediately draw down money to begin debris removal. Get the boots on the ground immediately, because you have to remember FEMA's a reimbursement. Okay, so we have to have that money up front. We do have reserves, but we can go through our 120-day reserve in a week after a hurricane. So that line of credit is absolutely essential. And to go through after a hurricane, to have to obtain a credit rating, because we can't draw the money until we have the credit rating, all right? So we're waiting 10, 15 days for a credit rating. Now, what kind of credit rating are you gonna get when you've just been blown away by a hurricane? All right, so this was a critical time-saving bill that Representative Leo Wilson worked very hard on our behalf and got through the House, worked closely with Senator Middleton to get through the Senate and to the governor's desk. And I just want to thank her because she was just fiercely working on this bill. And while it's not a flashy bill, it's a very meaningful bill if we're hit by a hurricane. And it will mean just an incredible amount in terms of our response time and clearing this island and clearing debris removal. So thank you very much for that. So I ate into some of my time, but I thought it was very important for people to understand what that bill means. So Gulf Coast Protection District. There is a couple of things that we've talked about before that I want to remind folks of. One, the Gulf Coast Protection District was created to be the non-federal sponsor for the Coastal Texas Storm Surge Protection System. That system is part of a larger Coastal Texas program that was authorized by Congress, and let's remember, Congress has a two-step. They authorize the project, and then you have to come back and get the funding. Now, when they authorized that project was authorized for $34 billion. Now, that $34 billion includes two aspects. The coastal storm risk management portion of the project, which includes the things that you're most familiar with and most impacted by: the gate system, the barrier system, the ring barrier, our double dune expanded beach system, and Dickinson and Clear Lake gate system. That's that storm risk management system, all right? Of that $34 billion, it's $31 billion for that system. Now, you also have ecosystem restoration work that goes all along the Texas coast to improve ecosystems as part of that storm surge protection. The General Land Office is the non-federal sponsor for the ecosystem restoration along the coastal Texas, along the entire coastal Texas coast, excuse me. I didn't have enough coffee this morning. So, the Gulf Coast Protection District, we involve 5 counties: Jefferson, Chambers, Galveston, Harris, and Orange County, all right? So I wanted to make this point to you because the cost estimate for the Coastal Texas program, including the storm surge protection system, is $34 billion. There's been some information reported in the last few weeks that this estimate has ballooned to $57 billion. And I wanted to explain what that $57 billion figure is in comparison to today's dollars, which is $34 billion. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers every 2 years reevaluates their cost estimates. That makes only perfect sense. Those of you who either are involved in construction or have experienced construction know that those costs go up yearly, more frequently than that these days. So what the Corps does is they say, all right, over a 20-year span, assuming a certain rate of cost increases and inflation, when all is said and done, this is what we would estimate that figure to be 20 years from now. All right? Now, what that doesn't assume is Congress comes in and they gives us a huge chunk of money and we're able to accomplish a huge portion of completing that project. That changes that 20-year estimate because the faster you build stuff, the less costly it's going to be, all right? So I didn't want people to get confused or distracted by a number that is really just a 20-year estimate that can change depending upon what happens next year and the following years after that. So I wanted to make sure that you had some clarity on that. Now, back to the Gulf Coast Protection District. We have been actively pursuing federal funding as State Representative Leo Wilson, with her support also, we have $200 million that the legislature has appropriated in anticipation of the non-federal share for the Coastal Texas project. It has been incumbent upon us to reach out to our congressional delegation for the federal share. And what the district has done is we've broken up our request into more what I call embraceable funding buckets, all right? And this is what is most meaningful for you. In the first bucket, we're asking for $269 million in federal funding, all right? In that bucket, that is going to pay for some of the ecosystem restoration work. It's going to pay for some of the pre-construction engineering work on the large gate system, primarily looking at acquisition strategies and things of that nature. But most importantly for us, it's gonna start the environmental and complete the environmental work necessary for our beach and dune system. We're in the first bucket, is what I'm trying to tell you. First year, first bucket, that NEPA environmental protection analysis will get started and start moving. So that, in my view, is why we want to move as quickly as possible, because we're always going to have the long-range vision of the large gate system. The large gate system is the economic engine, if you will, of this project. It protects the supply chain industries that move this state and this country, quite frankly.
Can I add something in here, and I don't know if you told me, but I'm guessing you're so not you did. So when they first started talking about moving forward with the dune system, they were going to do it on Bolivar. And Sally said, no, you're not. It's either Galveston or Bolivar. And she went and she pulled all the facts that were needed, and she put all the information. And as O'Sullivan said, who spoke here, yes, we are doing Galveston and Bolivar. So that's thanks to this lady.
Well, thank you very much.
We call her Bulldog at City Hall.
I appreciate that, but I do think that it was a collective effort along with Councilmember Robb, because when we first spoke to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers a year ago on sequencing, they had the beach and dune system laid out in year 7. That was completely unacceptable, because what Congress needs to see is progress and completion. And so our first bucket being a delicate balance of that long-term vision on that economic engine being the gate system, and shorter-term accomplishments with the ecosystem, and most importantly our beach and dune system. Because as we've advocated, the beach and dune system is both a storm surge protection, but for Galveston, it's an economic center. It's our #1 tourism attraction. All right, so We went to talk to the Office of Management and Budget, which is the President's office for preparing their fiscal year budget, but it is also the office that is administering and allocating that bipartisan infrastructure funding that came out last year. The Corps has roughly $1 billion in unallocated funding, 500 million of which can be used specifically for construction. That's the money we're going after. That's our quickest avenue for federal funding. We're going to hopefully set up another meeting with OMB in November because decisions are being made now in preparation of the President's budget release in early 2024, and that's for the President's budget request in FY25. But we're going to be pursuing that quite aggressively. We have spoken to several of our congressional delegation, again, when we went up in September, and Congressman Weber and Congressman Cuellar, Henry Cuellar, are working together to get a delegation letter signed to OMB asking for this money. So we're hoping that we can make that happen. One final thing that I wanted to tell you about, the board approved an interlocal agreement with the General Land Office to pursue a sediment study. This is to identify sand sources for our beach and dune system. So we will be working with the General Land Office on that. So can I answer any questions? All right, back to you.
Thanks so much, Sally. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll move on. We'll go to Craig Vance, Beach Maintenance Advisory Committee report.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, good morning. Our last Beach Maintenance Advisory Committee with the Park Board was on the 6th. We had a gentleman named Marty Miles with a nonprofit called Perpetual. They're partnering with the Turtle Island Network, Restoration, thank you. Right now it's in the discovery process, but they're trying to implement this reusable drinkware program throughout the island. There's 400 plus restaurants and food service organizations on the island, and they're contacting them. Basically, it's like a Yeti type cup like this, or the larger ones, that you would go to get a coffee or something, and you would get that instead of a disposable cup. And then they would place these reception containers throughout the island that you could go and drop it back off, and they have a facility that comes and picks it up and cleans it, sterilizes it, and redistributes it, and it's just a loop cycle. Right now, again, they're just in the planning stages. They did a presentation to us. We voted to allow them to go forward with it with the park board and just kind of go from there. Again, informational time right now. The next item was Dr. Hal Needham gave his tropical weather update. We had a good season this year, not over yet, but 95%. El Nino helped us keeping the storms away from us, but the miss on that is cold, wet winter, which I guess we're going to have Monday, so that's coming. They also approved the 2024 work plan for the upcoming session with various items. One thing that pertains with us, among others, is discussing the San Luis Pass, that big beach and the dunes over there where it's just chaos, is trying to get that under control, clean, better managed, to kind of get that cleaned up, and that's coming up in, I believe, early next year, February, March. Elizabeth Schneider gave an environmental recap of the efforts that they did over the summer. They had 3 beach toy borrow boxes where an Eagle Scout project, the guy built these pretty substantial wooden boxes that they have, and they have some toys in there, and people can come and borrow them, play with them, and turn them back in, or some have gone home with them. But it was a big success, and they really weren't sure how it would do, and it was really good. So they're gonna do more of those for next summer, and have them more dispersed throughout the beaches along the seawall. Another one was called Up to You Galveston, and it's the use of reusable trash bags that you can get. They had 3,000 of them, and they're essentially those plastic mesh kind of potato sack looking bags that you can get, and throw your trash in there and then drop it back off at the station there. And that was received very well as well. They also have the Beach Ambassador program that people can sign up to do. I think right now there's 21 people that are doing that, where they volunteer their time and kind of adopt a section of beach, and they have tools that they can, grabbers and bags and things like that they are given to complete the task. They also fill out a form telling the day, the date, the beach they were at, how much trash they collected. And our own John Lightfoot participates in that program. And Elizabeth said to make sure to recognize you, that you submitted the most forms of all of them.
Oh, wow.
So appreciate your efforts.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so keep it up. So that's a good thing. They also do volunteer cleanups, which a couple times a year, and those are just really widely attended. They also do speaking engagements at local schools and other organizations to help promote the environmental efforts that the park board is putting forth on our beaches. And then they also participate in the Women in Coastal Science conference every year, and that's grown as well. Lastly, beach projects, the Delanera Beach, when they did all the new material, the trucks, the trucks apparently had chunks of concrete and other debris, plus the usable sand. So as the rains and tides and all that have come and kind of sifted the sand, there's just these huge chunks of concrete and other big rocks and all that. So they've been going back and forth with the contractor, and they're literally sifting all of that new sand to remove all that debris. And then better measures taken next time to hold them accountable for the quality of the product being applied to the beach. Babes Beach, that they did the huge renourishment project a couple years ago, and they renourish it every year. For next year, they're not going to be able to, because there's not a sand source right now that they've identified that's large enough capacity usable material. But then they'll reevaluate that in years coming. Also, they're still moving west with the renourishment project, incrementally, a couple of miles at a time. Marie may know more about that project, but they said that's within the next 2 years that they're going to continue to move westward with that. And this is the last thing. I just completed my third 2-year term, talking about term limits. So I'm out. That was my last meeting. Chris Lauer, board member here, was selected by the park board to fill my shoes. So he's going to be in for the next 2 years, starting at the next meeting, which is November, right? Yeah, next Friday. So going forward, Chris will be providing updates for us as well, I assume, and carry the torch. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Can I say something? So since this is Recognized John Lightfoot Day, I thought I would mention that he has recently been appointed to the Planning Commission. So John, thank you very much for being willing to serve. And I will tell you, as someone who was involved in an action before the Planning Commission in July, it is extremely important to have people on the commission who understand the unique issues associated with beach construction. So I think we are very, very fortunate to have John, and I personally appreciate your willingness to serve.
Well, thank you, and I have to give a big thanks to Marie Robb, because she is the one who encouraged me to put my application in for that position. So thank you, Marie.
It has come full circle, gang. So thank you. Thanks, Marie.
Congratulations, John. Craig, thank you for your service on the committee. Marie, I see you came in. Would you like to say a few words?
Say no and surprise us, Marie.
I've only stood up once,
There you go.
but I won't.
Thanks for coming.
Because we had the second annual breast cancer walk on Pirates Beach, which is always the fourth Saturday, so Terri kind of messed me up there. And it benefits the Rose. And for those of you who don't know what the Rose is like a portable breast cancer service, and it provides breast screening for people who can't afford it and so forth, so it's a very good service. Next year, our plans are to make it even bigger, but I am a smelly, messy, I took my pink shirt off, and I had a hat on earlier, so you'll have to forgive me for my smelliness. Anyway, things are moving forward at the city. We are in the process of reviewing the Parks Board budget, and I probably take more exception to it than most, because we meaning District 6, we now probably we're probably responsible for 50 to 60% of the hot tax. And we get kind of 10% of the benefit of it. And I'm really tired of it. But some of the things in their budget that are, to me, quite disturbing, such as their beach cleaning department, of which all you know that if you want to get your beach clean because of an inundated, you're having to put up $5,000 to $10,000. So we're paying for it ourselves. Their beach cleaning department has 45 people, and their budget for that department is $3.2 million. So if you average that out per person, a lot of those people are people just picking up trash. That's $71,000 a person. And I really, they will give us no explanation how many of those positions are full. So I don't want to micromanage them. I don't want to take them over. I just want answers. In our budget that we're responsible for the city, being we're both public entities. This is your money. It may come from a visitor, but this is your money. We have the most short-term rentals, and we take the most abuse, not abuse, but our roads, trash flying, and it's time that we got some services out of hot tax. We don't have lifeguards on our beach, so I am probably being a little more obnoxious than most council people on this. But then the other day, yesterday, I see they killed the sandcastle event. Yes, that's been here for what, 38 years? Well, they have one story. I called the gentleman who is their executive director. His story is the opposite. But any which way, the mayor, city management, we are meeting with the architectural group on Tuesday to see what we can do to salvage it. I mean, when you look at events, the big events like Mardi Gras, Dickens, even the motorcycle event, they're actually managed by the city. So I guess we could take this one over too. if need be, but that is such a good event. It puts people's heads in beds. It's a high-class tourist. It's people who fill our restaurants, who use our stores, and we are not going to let that go.
It's a ton of money too.
It makes a ton of money for the city, like a ton of sales tax money, ton of hot tax money, so we are trying to get that straightened out. We have some new development that is being proposed out here. We have, I think it's Rosietta Beach, and he has agreed to work with the city in providing off-beach parking that's going to help us get some more cars off the beach in the Bermuda Beach area, some out of the neighborhood in the Spanish Grant neighborhood, and I'm very excited about that. I also, and I'm meeting with a number of developers now out here, because once people own land, we can't say, no, you can't build on it. But I'm asking them, and I asked him, I said, would you deed restrict short-term rentals? And he said yes. And there's another one going in on the north side, sort of between 12 and 11 Mile Road. And I'm trying to get them to do the same thing. Because we just can't take that many more cars. I mean, the Margaritaville that I'm sure y'all read about, either in the newspaper, or on the TV, or you name it. If you looked at what they were presenting, it was so ludicrous. Like, I would never in a million years vote for that. They were putting in 278 properties, 26-foot streets, and they were proposing parking on one side. And it's funny, because when you think about wasted away in Margaritaville, and not to classify any kind of person, but I'm like, it's probably going to be a Land Rover. So they give us a new packet, and under the house is what's parked but Land Rover, so I just laugh. But imagine a Land Rover parallel parked on a 26-foot street. You can't get a fire truck down. That is a huge safety answer. They had no right-of-ways, they had no sidewalks, and they were proposing a raised boardwalk behind their properties. So think about buying a $1.5 million house, and the people down the street around you, whatnot, are short-term rentals, and they're walking back home behind your kitchen happy. That would freak me out. That's like being at a $1 million motel. I mean, I'd be scared. But anyway, they withdrew their packet this week. But they are zone commercial. They will be coming back with something. They're talking about doing a hotel. I just hope, 26-foot streets are just not a good idea. But with the Rosetta, this other one, some other development that is going further west, I'm back on my natural gas project. I'm getting that in because I also get them all to commit to natural gas, and the more I get to commit west of Jamaica Beach, or more darn people in Jamaica Beach would put gas in, we wouldn't have such a hard time with it. But I am back working on natural gas. We are finishing up our drainage master plan, and I think I saw yesterday we have 4 projects. I know one is Terramar, I think one is Sea Isle, Pirates, Karankawa, and some other ones further east. So we are working on that. Streets, we're finishing up our street review, but anytime you have a pothole issue, text it to me. And especially because this happens all the time. You see me out somewhere and people will say, oh, there's that pothole on 76 and da-da-da. You know, and I might have had a glass of wine. Like, if you expect me to remember this, text me the next day. And my number is 409-256-4518. I know you had questions, Sarah, so I'm going to answer your questions. We have a wetlands project that is being done sort of it's on the Sullivan Ranch, Rocky Sullivan's ranch. And what he is doing is he is deepening what are freshwater wetlands. And I have a scientific thing I'll send you that they sent me. But basically, it actually should help you with your flooding. And it will serve as a sand source for our beaches. It is in the final stages of approval for being beach quality sand. Because that's the nourishment, I haven't heard anything about mile by mile. The nourishment so they're in the process of finalizing the engineering and design of from 7 Mile to 13 Mile. Once they finalize the engineering, they're going to do the whole project at once. Or else I'm going to go battle with somebody. Because you can't do a beach project block mile by mile. The mobilization would kill you. So I think we're more waiting for the sand source, and hopefully that'll be approved in the next 4 months. Let's see, what am I forgetting, Peggy? You're always good.
Thank you. 3 beach amendments to the GLO plan. And the reason why I think it's important for you to address this very briefly, based on the public comments that were made at City Council meeting, there probably will be even more misunderstanding than before. So clarify specifically.
Okay, so there's 3 beach amendments that were put up. One was taking the cars off of Sunny Beach. One was on the East Beach. On the East Beach, we have a 2,400-foot handicap special use area. We are not closing the handicap special use area. We are taking 1,000 feet of that, and we are moving it to the west side of Stewart Beach. And we are actually putting in a state-of-the-art handicap beach access. We will have Moby mats. We're working in unison with the park board. We will have those large wheelchairs. We'll be able to park right up by the water. So what we're doing is taking 1,000 feet from here and actually putting in 1,200 more feet over here. Part of the issue we have with our existing access plan, and Chris is certainly one who has dealt with this for a while, is like in Bermuda Beach. Bermuda Beach is required to have 200 parking spots. Well, nobody factored in the fact that they lost the road at night. So it's kind of hard to still provide those parking spots. So we're doing an amendment with that. We're transferring some of the parking there. Aside from what we're working on with the developer, we are going to be moving some to the Pocket Park 3 that will be reopened, contrary to what was said by some people in public comment. It will be fully reopened. We're working on a great grant right now. We're in the final stages, and that will probably be opened, I hope, before the summer. And we are expanding what we've done at Pocket Park 4, because as you all know, my goal is to get all cars off the beach. So we had the 3 amendments that went up, which the GLO had told us we needed to just send the 3 up. And once we send them up, they said, okay, these 2 are good, we need more on this, but now submit all your amendments. So we had to go back, and some of it was like the should have been a that, or crossing a T, dotting an I. So we had to get that all done, and now hopefully it was either submitted on Friday or Monday. But we are not making any beaches public. We are not making any beaches private. We are not taking away beach access. We are just trying to do what is most, what meets the GLO's goals and serves our citizens best, as well as the public. The other thing that's going in, and they're actually letting me give input, next to Gary Green's office, that someone has bought that track. That's a commercial track. And they're like, what services do you need? So I have my list. I went in to get other people's. One, we need more restaurants. We all know that. We definitely need more restaurants. And upscale, like gourmet food, supermarket or something. A full service dry cleaner, I think that would be ideal. Maybe a well camouflage, because they own all the way from 3005 to Stewart. One of those Blue Wave car washes. What do y'all want to see?
A sandwich shop.
A sandwich shop?
On the west end.
That's
it's
true.
on Subway.
You can get any kind of Mexican food, but no sandwich shop.
I like that.
I like that. See, but that could be part of the whole pre-packaged thing, you know? Make fresh sandwiches. What else would you like to see? Come on, people must have hopes. Art?
I'd like to see something that you were talking about a minute ago, about the potholes. Remember we talked about 2 months ago, the holes that are
On
in the
the,
seawall?
yeah.
Well, nothing has ever been done yet. And
Well, some of them have been done. The parts that are
They did it. They
on
did it-
this side of 61st Street, which is TxDOT,
Right.
have been done. The other part is the county. Too
Well,
bad Joe
I
Juicy
I
left.
talked to the county, and they said they have no idea to do that because it doesn't belong to them.
It does belong to them.
Well, let me tell you what's going on now. It's so bad out
I
there
know it
on
is.
the top.
I drive it every day.
The dirt is coming up out of the top of the seawall. You get a good rain, you're gonna see some seawall going to sea.
Yeah.
I
Well-
wonder what we gotta do. I called Corps Engineers, and they said they were studying it, and we're gonna turn it over to, the federal people to force the city of Galveston or.
It isn't. The county is responsible for the
That's
seawall.
the problem. Nobody knows who's.
Well, anyway, I'll ask the question again and see if I can get the city out there to at least do
I'll
a
be more than
temporary
happy to
patch.
Take them out there.
Oh, no, you see it. I drive it every day.
Yep.
Do we have like a substation at all for police out here, and is that something that could be in that development?
We even have a building that's a city building, that's the old mud district, but the city management wants the police in the cars. So I have tried to get a substation out here. I will always try, but I'm always met with resistance. But great idea. But one of the things we are moving forward with, and I know it's an idea I've talked about here before, is we're moving forward with cross-training the sheriffs, because like Pirates uses sheriffs for extra security, so do a number of neighborhoods. But if a sheriff, if it's a city ordinance, they have to call PD. So we actually have a donor who has donated the money for the cross-training. The chief is into it, even city management has approved it. So we are in that process. A not-for-profit is being formed, similar to one they have in Houston, where we'll be able to get Jamaica, because like Jamaica Beach is always one I cite. I have a Jamaica Beach policeman who lives in Isla del Sol. Well, there could be there's a rental next to him, and it could be 4 city ordinances that they're breaking, and he has to call marshal or PD, because even though he's a policeman, because we don't have a MOU in place. So we are working on that. That'll make it a little bit better. But again, I'm going to reiterate, the number of police that we get are tied to the number of calls that we receive. So I don't care how small it is. We know we have homeless moving this way. If you have someone that looks like they don't belong, they probably don't belong. Just call the non-emergency police number, and I'm going to use the example again, but down in John's neighborhood, there were 5 full-time people that saw that party get out of control. And if somebody had called the cops at midnight, we might have 2 kids alive. So you see a party getting out of control, call. I call. Don't think you're a pain in the butt. And if somebody's afraid to call, text me. I'll call for you. But you should never, they're not going to give them your name, just so you know that. Any questions? Thank you. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Thanks for coming.
You betcha.
Doing a great job. Well, our next meeting is going to be in January. That'll be January the 20th. We don't have any meetings in November, December. No one ever came. So, but anyways, thank you again, Terri Leo Wilson, for presentation. Sally, we thank you for yours. Marie, thanks for coming again. And Craig, thank you for all your work at the BMAC. We'll miss you. Outside of that, don't forget when you leave today, House Doctors have some goodies on the table over here for you. And thanks again for being a sponsor. Anything else? We are adjourned. Thank you. Yes, Terri Leo.
I'm gonna email Peggy. She sent me a text. I'll email Peggy. It's nonpartisan. I'm not telling you which way I'm voting, but I'll give you the pros and cons of each of the propositions. So Peggy said she would email that out.